really long time, so I appreciate you coming up tonight. Again, my name is Laura DeBetta, and I'm chair of the Housing and Urban Planning Committee. We're a small, committed, and kind of a group just getting going, so we absolutely welcome some new energy and enthusiasm. If any of you are interested in what you hear tonight and interested in taking it further, please definitely see myself or Amy Derland, who's also on the committee, after tonight's presentation. As probably most of you know, because I see lots of familiar faces here, Saratoga, unlike most nearby cities, has been growing. While Albany, Schenectady, and Troy are losing population, we continue to grow, which is a great problem to have, but it does present some challenges in trying to maintain and improve the quality of life for our residents, and also preserve the important natural areas that we're very lucky to have. And we're also lucky to have two speakers tonight who bring with them a wealth of experience in dealing with smart growth, housing affordability, and community economic development issues. So each of them is going to speak for 15, 20 minutes and then be very open to answering your questions. Our first speaker is Peter Fleischer, who is Executive Director of Empire State Future, which is a statewide coalition of, I think, nearly 40 organizations from around the state: conservation groups, environmental justice groups, planning and sustainability organizations. And I'll let Peter tell you a lot more about them, but just a little bit more about Peter. Peter was Senior Vice President of the Governor's Island Conservation Education Corporation. He also served as Deputy Director in the New York City Mayor's Office of Transportation. He served on the board of the State Council on Waterways. He has an MBA from Yale School of Management and a BA in Government from Harvard. So we're really lucky to have Peter Fleischer with us tonight.
I'm going to hand out a brochure that describes the organization. It's free if you don't want to get home, leave it back on the table and let it play out. And I'll have extra to hand out at the next meeting. But one of the things you might want to do is turn right to page 3. Everybody says, so who are your 39 members? And you'll get a sense of the geographic range of the organization as well as the functional range. It'll give you a little idea of who we are, where we're coming from. I do travel all over the state. I've recently been in New York City and Ossining. I've been in Buffalo and Syracuse and Rochester and other places all in the last 4 weeks. I am happy to say, though, that this is, I think, my 4th trip back to Saratoga just in the last 3 or 4 months, which is a great thing because we have a great town here and a great region. But I have been here for the horses. I did that this summer. It was the first time I've ever seen horses anywhere, so that was very interesting for me. Had dinner with James Kunstler not too long ago. I'm sure you know he's one of your citizens of notoriety. And American Farmland Trust, also based here in Saratoga Springs, is one of our coalition members. We are a growing coalition. When I started this job about 2.5 years ago, we had 23 organizations. We're actually at 42, officially 39, but we're about to announce 3 more. We want to expand our geographic range, so perhaps Saratoga Springs, Sustainable Saratoga will be interested. But I'm not here to pitch your joining, but rather to tell you a little bit about what we're trying to do statewide and to learn what you think is sustainability and is appropriate for this region. And I am well aware that New York State is a very diverse place. I sometimes think there are at least 9 different regions in New York that have very little in common in terms of how sustainable economic and community development would come out if we got there, and have very little in common in terms of where we are today. The southern tier isn't even like the Adirondacks, and the suburbs of Rochester and Buffalo really aren't even like the suburbs of Long Island. And you can go on with the various kinds of diversity we have in New York. The coalition reflects that diversity to some degree. We have the Adirondack Council, we have Catskill Center, we have LISC Buffalo, we have Vision Long Island, we have groups in the Hudson Valley, groups in the capital area. So we really are a statewide organization. We're a nonprofit. The coalition includes environmental organizations and planning organizations. It also includes private businesses, including several for-profit developers, which is very important because we have multiple perspectives incorporated in what we do, and allows us to talk to people with the influence that comes from having multiple perspectives. Our mission is the economic revitalization of, we call it New York's older industrial places, but essentially it's revitalization of places that could have better development and more development than they do now. And by development, we're going to be very careful what we're saying, because what we say is we want growth, but couldn't we do it in the right places, done the right way? And we can tweak what right means, but we mean something by it. Let's not just do what's easy, what comes along fast. Let's actually try to think through the long-run applications of what we're doing. Let's think through the what they used to call externalities, but boy, if we don't internalize them pretty quickly, we're going to have big problems down the road. We seek this mission by trying to advocate the principles of smart growth. And if you go to the first page, the bullets, there are about 7 of them, are what we call the smart growth principles. Some people say there are 10 principles of smart growth. Some places, if they get to 1 or 1.5, they're doing way better than they've been doing in the past. I don't get very caught up as to whether it's 1, 7, or 10, or whether you take number 3 and get there 100%. Every community needs to go on their own pace, with their own circumstances, but hopefully advancing from 0 or half or 1 or 2 to more. And the core of these principles is mixed use development. First of all, it's development, it's growth, it's change, but it's mixed use. It's avoiding greenfields. It's reusing what we already have. And the basic concept of reusing what we already have is fundamental to the work we've done in Albany in this year, pushing legislation and working with the government agencies to ensure that what the governor committed to doing vis-a-vis smart growth, he is doing. So we do it in 3 ways. We lobby the legislature, we bird dog the governor and his smart growth cabinet to make sure the agencies are doing what they said, and we try to educate the public through the media or in person or through our website about why land use and development decision making is fundamental to almost your daily quality of life, the value of your home. Things that are near and dear to you, even if you don't get involved personally with the process of land use and development decision making in your community. But New Yorkers, we hope, will become more apprised that these are decisions they can help influence. These are decisions that can be made better just by sharing more knowledge and adding perspective. And it's important that they be made better because we get a lot of really bad land use outcomes across New York State. I'm going to talk a little bit more, but at a certain point, once you can tell that I've gotten the basic message out, I'd love to get questions, your perspectives, etc., mixed in with the conversation. The reason it's so important is because, and again, Saratoga Springs, maybe Saratoga County, is a little bit of an exception in New York State. I spend a lot of time looking at demographics. I'm a New York City person who, when I got this statewide job, moved up to the Albany area 2.5 years ago, and I had to make sure I knew the difference between Oneonta, Onondaga, Oswego, and all these places that used to sound the same to me. And so I spent a lot of time looking at maps and almanacs, and then once I got the basic lay of the land, I started looking at demographics. And 49 counties in New York State are already flat or losing population. By 2020, only 6 counties upstate will be gaining population. Saratoga is the only one of the upstate counties that will have meaningful growth. Now, I put Ulster, Orange, Putnam, and Dutchess downstate, metropolitan area, but you take the other 49 counties, only 6 will have any growth over the next 20 years, and they really will be very minor. Only Saratoga is going to have significant growth. So you're really an anomaly. And in a way, maybe you consider yourself lucky because there are all kinds of advantages associated with that. I know you're working on bettering the disadvantages associated with it. But I look at a statewide issue, and I have to go out into Buffalo, a place that used to have 650,000 people and now has 260,000. And you go out to certain neighborhoods in Buffalo, and you look like this for 4 blocks away to see a house standing. And in Rochester, you have some neighborhoods that are like that. The median house value in the city of Rochester is $45,000. which is greater by far than the median house value in Buffalo. I won't even mention Detroit. And so when I see these places, I look at sort of the different kinds of New York. New York City's gained 1 million people in the last 20 years. It's projected to gain another 1 million in the next 25 years. Putnam, Orange, Dutchess, they're the fast-growing suburban counties. Westchester, Nassau have sort of slowed down to a large degree, are going to grow considerably, but off a smaller base. But the problem they're going to have, maybe a little bit like Saratoga, is can you preserve your quality of life? Can you make the right decisions about your infrastructure so that the standard of living doesn't go down as you grow? You lose what people love about the place as you grow, and that's the challenge for them. But for so much of upstate, this losing population is a very dangerous phenomenon, and it's dangerous fiscally. Because here's the situation in a nutshell. If you've spent the last 20 years adding infrastructure further and further out into the county, by infrastructure I mean curbs and roads and water and sewer and so on, and then you have to add services, police and fire and schools and hospitals, and you're doing it further and further out into the county in smaller and smaller, less efficient units. But your population is shrinking and your tax base is shrinking. And it's been doing so for the last 20 or 30 years. And now it's projected to lose population for the next 20 or 30, 25 years. If you're adding infrastructure and have to finance, maintain, and operate it, and then you've added services, which if you cut back, people scream, and you can't afford to maintain what you already have in your cities by way of infrastructure or services, and your population and tax base are going down, you're condemned to rounds of property tax increases to pay those bills for the future. And what that will do is perhaps accelerate the vicious cycle of people getting up and leaving. Now, maybe a lot of them go to Saratoga, and maybe that's a good thing, but it's really not sustainable fiscally for the state of New York. So we're trying to highlight that and keep that issue very live in Albany. And one of the things we did last year is we worked very hard with our coalition, and not just the 39 members of the coalition, but with AARP, who brings in the perspective of 2.5 million New Yorkers over 50, not 65, and remember, we'll all be seniors at some point, we hope. The New York State Public Health Alliance, the people who are worried about walkable, healthy communities, bringing in the obesity concerns, the diabetes concerns, and so we had a very broad coalition. And what we said is, you need to pass a bill that looks the way we spend money on infrastructure. And in fact, we did. Through this dysfunctional legislature, I won't characterize it further, but everybody's heard about it and everybody has an opinion about it. We got a bill passed that was bipartisan. We had Republicans and Democrats sponsoring it. That says all state agencies, public authorities, and public corporations, so we got all the folks who have any money, must align all of their infrastructure spending with the 9 explicitly stated smart growth criteria in the bill. Now, the bill further says that they have to form advisory committees within to get constituent input and so on, and they have to issue smart growth impact statements, but they are allowed to get out of it. They are allowed to say, look, we tried to put global foundries. We tried to put this unnamed high-tech institution that's going to bring in thousands of high-paying jobs in downtown Utica. We tried to put it in downtown Schenectady. We begged them to go to the Harriman Canyons, and they wouldn't do it. So we have to put them in this green field in a place called Malta that maybe you've heard of, and because we don't want to lose them. You can argue as to whether that kind of loophole is something you can drive a very big, inefficient truck through, but the fact is we wouldn't have passed it if we hadn't done that. And if we're impacting every penny of infrastructure and the spending from all these agencies, I don't want to be responsible for all the things we say no to that'll be job growth in the next few years. So we'll see how it works, and we'll tighten the jaws on this if we have to. But right now, every state agency is being told by the Patterson administration, we hope very much that the next governor, whoever that may be, picks this up and says, we'll implement this robustly and comprehensively too, says, we're going to also make sure infrastructure money is spent wisely. And let's talk about what it does. What it says is, if we only have a limited amount of money for public infrastructure, Can we continue to spend it to the people who are first at the trough, putting sewer lines into green fields, so that there's no